In this video, we're going to talk about having hope beyond the grave. I mean, it's one of the big questions, isn't it? Is there life after death? And the Christian gospel assures us that not only is there hope after the grave, there's actually a wonderful destiny after the grave. Of course, not everybody believes in life after death. There are people who believe that we're just snuffed out and that's the end of it all. That would make life essentially meaningless. It would mean that what we're living now is like a dream without even the redeeming feature that we get to wake up and remember something of it at the end of it. I think most of us find that a really depressing way of looking at life. In many forms of Buddhism, there isn't a lot more hope. The idea being that we go through a series of reincarnations, and this cycle of reincarnations brings us closer to enlightenment, to nirvana. And then, according to the Buddhist philosophy, when we reach this state of nirvana, we actually reach a state called atthana, which means non-self, or sunyata, which means an emptiness. And so our individual identity is lost within the whole. Again, that's profoundly dissatisfying because it means that some of the most precious things in life, holding my wife in my arms, holding my newborn daughter in my arms, holding my granddaughter in my arms, these things actually become meaningless and temporary with no true value. Other ancient peoples had views of the afterlife where they believed in an afterlife, but it was in a very carnal and earthly sense. Even the Neanderthals buried their dead with food and weapons beside them because they envisaged they would need them in the next stage of their existence. We know that the ancient Egyptians had very complex burial rites. We have the mummies, we have the pyramids, and we have all these ideas about gods that looked like cats and looked like alligators and what they would have to do on their journey to the next life. The ancient Greeks believed that you were ferried across the river Styx by the ferryman Charon and you arrived in the underworld. But you know, all of these ideas of life are really just that the next life, the afterlife, is really not going to be that different to this life. But the monotheistic religions, Judaism, Islam, Christianity, view life after death as being a totally different kind of life. For the Jews, at the time of Jesus, they saw that there was a place called Sheol, and there was a nice part and a nasty part, that you could spend eternity in the fire or you could spend eternity in the bosom of Abraham. And within Islam, there's the idea that you can spend eternity lounging around in a beautiful garden surrounded by 70 virgins. Now, even within nominal Christianity, we have some ideas of the afterlife which actually are unbiblical and profoundly pagan. The idea that we're going to float around forever on a cloud as a disembodied spirit, something like Casper the Friendly Ghost. Or the idea that when people die, they become angels. I remember when I had a young daughter who died tragically, and I remember at the funeral somebody giving me a little plaque with a little poem saying my daughter had become an angel. They meant very well, but the plaque went straight in the bin when I got home because my daughter didn't become an angel. That's not a biblical concept. That's a very pagan concept. We also have some people, even within evangelical and Pentecostal churches, that talk about the afterlife as if this life doesn't matter. And so they'll refer to our bodies as being earth suits. They imply that what you do on this earth doesn't really have any eternal significance. And even this saying, a very popular saying that says, you are a spirit and you have a soul and you live in a body, as if only the spirit is the real you. But in contrast to that, The New Testament teaches us that the hope of the church is a resurrection, when our eternal soul and spirit are united with a new resurrection body. And that's where we really discover what lies beyond the grave. According to the New Testament, what we do in our bodies matters very much, because we're not going to be lounging around in a garden with 70 virgins for all eternity. We're not going to disappear into nirvana. Instead, in our resurrected body, we're going to have a purpose, and that is to glorify God. And we actually see glimpses of this at the end of the Old Testament. For example, in Daniel chapter 12, verses 2 and 3, we read there that all will be resurrected. And, curiously, it's not like we think of it as either pain or bliss, but Daniel says that we'll be resurrected, some to shame and everlasting contempt, but others to glory and to shine like the stars forever and ever. And this actually develops in the book of Ephesians into a really full-blown Christian theology of glorifying God after this life. And in Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 to 10, now verses 8 and 9 stress that this is not about earning heaven or earning eternal life, that is a gift from God. Nobody can boast. But then in verse 10, it says, and we are God's handiwork, created to do good work. And that word handiwork, the Greek word is poema, and it literally means a masterpiece. It was like a craftsman would build something that would show forth all of his creative ability. And the New Testament says that we as the church are to be God's masterpiece. It actually speaks about eternal crowns. That means it's not that we're competing with one another. It's not a matter of ambition, but it's the case that together as the church, we will shine forth with the glory of God for all eternity. That is the divine destiny of the church. And that is the Christian idea of what lies after this life.